Great, thank you very much. And I do apologise that Peter couldn't be here. Unfortunately, he had to be called away urgently. But I'm delighted that I'm able to step in. So I have a presentation, and we're looking at sort of joint action, particularly around food system transformation, of which food loss and waste is a key dimension of that. So firstly, I mean, the world is very complex, but we don't need to make it complicated because we know where we can act. There is a climate emergency, which many of you will have heard about. It's very sort of tangible, both in terms of weather conditions and also the bushfires. And really, that gives us a real tangible sense of jeopardy that we can use. I remember someone saying, you can't waste a good crisis. This is an opportunity to use this a sense of jeopardy to catalyze action. There are also social tensions and conflict, which are related to climate, but also food systems. But there's also global activism here, and that can be harnessed for good, if we can use it all in the right way. Now, food systems, as you'll be able to see on that slide, is really a central cause of those 4 different types of really negative impacts. But it can also be a solution if we adopt a systems approach to resolving those challenges. And food loss and waste is really an important component of that. We have an enormous opportunity if we can really address food loss and waste, because it appears across the value chains at every stage, and we heard that a bit earlier today as well. We can reduce by 8% greenhouse gas emissions through addressing food loss and waste. And we can also save the global economy about $940 billion US. And we know what to do. The Paris Climate Agenda and also the SDGs, and particularly 12.3, are really pointing the way. They are the global roadmap that we can use. At WBCSD, we want to really bring the voice of business to this agenda to make a real impact. And we're doing this at WBCSD in 6 different ways, trying to move 6 different systems, and they're appearing now on the screen, to help deliver on the SDGs and Paris climate action. Those include food and nature, where I work, but also climate and energy, redefining values, cities and mobility, as well as people. Now, in terms of food and nature, we really want to achieve a vision across the food system of healthy people and a healthy planet. But one of the challenges when it comes to food loss and waste that we are realizing with our businesses and our members is that there are very, very many different ways that food loss and waste is being categorized, the way it's being defined, and that's really going to make data collection very, very difficult. Businesses and also countries are not tracking food loss and waste either, and we really need to track and we need to measure, or we won't meet the ambitious goals that the SDGs are setting out. But what we do have are a number of tools. The Food Loss and Waste Protocol is a great example of cross-community and multi-stakeholder collaboration, a partnership with the UN agencies, research institutes, and business. It's led by WRI and really helps countries and businesses to estimate the food loss and waste that are occurring in their countries and also across supply chains. There is also the Global Food Loss and Waste Accounting and Reporting Standard, and that really provides a very useful and handy framework for businesses and countries too. But we need to be able to, we need to use them. And certainly the experience with companies is they recognize that they can act on food loss and waste, and many are, and I'll show you some examples. But we really need to drive that home and really build the capacity for them to act. And that's a key challenge that we're currently facing. We also have something called the Food Loss and Waste Calculator. Food Loss and Waste Calculator is something that we created in Fresh, and it's to look at food loss and waste in different ways, looking at nutrient loss and waste throughout the value chain, as well as environmental impact, because we want to take a systems-wide approach to resolving this problem and look at the challenges in a systems perspective. And the Food Loss and Waste Calculator is now housed on the WRI website and has had many views, not just by businesses or be used by businesses, but by many other stakeholders and actors. One of the things that we just published recently is something called the CEO Guide to Food Systems Transformation. Is based on stakeholder interviews. It's based on the catalogue of landmark reports on the science in terms of the direction of travel that we need to take on food systems. And it was published on World Food Day in October. And that CEO Guide to Food System Transformation provides a sort of set of pathways, a framework, a business response to the challenge of food systems transformation. And one of the direct pathways toward that transformation is food loss and waste that we identified, but also a sort of cross-cutting enabler to addressing food loss and waste is transparency. And that's why we need this combination of the tools and the accounting standards to really drive impact. Now we have a number of examples here of our members in WBCSD making sort of practical changes in their supply chains to address food loss and waste. As I said earlier, we know what we need to do. Examples of that are in OLAM. They are reducing the loss of rice in their supply chains in Nigeria. In palm oil, they're reducing losses in the Gabon. International flavors and fragrances, they are using new technology to dry food that otherwise would be lost, like spinach and also tomatoes, and returning that into new products. DSM, who are working really across the value chain and real sort of leaders in this space, have developed technology in cheese ripening to reduce waste by up to 7%. In DuPont, they've extended the life of yogurts, again, to increase shelf life and reduce waste. So these are businesses acting in their supply chains to really make a difference, because the technology is there to do that. But companies are also realizing that they can't just do everything in their supply chain. They actually need to collaborate if we're really going to get systems-wide transformation, of which food loss and waste, addressing that is a really key element. So acting together, we're working with a number of different stakeholder groups and multi-stakeholder platforms. Champions 12.3 is one of those, one of the early ones that really, at a global level, catalyzed about 39 leaders at the moment to really scale up the ambition on addressing food loss and waste, and Peter is one of those champions. At Fresh, we are been doing a pilot at the moment with Sonai, which is a Portuguese retailer, and BCG, to map their entire value chain, particularly around fruit and veg, and looking at particular interventions and solutions to really reduce food loss and waste across the value chain. In Mexico, we're working in partnership with a public-private partnership with P4G, support and funding to recover food loss and waste. In Mexico, an enormous amount of food loss and waste occurs, up to about 20 million tons a year. In Indonesia, there's an Indonesian action partnership to address food loss and waste. So as you can see, companies are not just working individually in their supply chain, they're collaborating in multi-stakeholder partnerships to really get that scale and impact. I think the point that really Peter wanted to convey here in terms of this story that we have, the sense of a climate emergency, the jeopardy that we have, this unrest and the activism, how we can harness all that for real change, for food system transformation, which is a key system that we need to change to get to the Paris climate agenda, and also the SDGs, with food loss and waste being a key component of that, but also recognizing it as one component that needs to be a lever that needs to be pushed alongside a number of others at the same time. And his challenge is we need to lead, and if we don't lead, we will fail, the world will fail. Thank you very much.